Education and Public Safety Committee of Brooklyn Community Board 2 has been called to order and is now being recorded for the purpose of transparency and for permanent public access on the CB2 YouTube archive. All attendees, please keep your microphone muted when you're not speaking. The district staff will actively assist in maintaining this protocol. The chair, vice chair, and secretary will be unmuted to be able to host the meeting. It is the practice of Community Board 2 to conduct virtual remote meetings with all committee members cameras on for full transparency. We encourage all attendees to also leave their cameras on, particularly if you are given the floor to speak. To maintain appropriate discussion and voting processes, I will make it known when and which topics are open for public comment by committee members, board members at large, and then the general public. If you wish to speak, please use the Webex feature on the participants panel to digitally raise and lower a hand, and I will call on you in order. If you have questions that fall outside of the public comment time, please type your questions in the chat panel and we'll address them if time permits. If any attendee experiences technical difficulties with the Webex software or features during the meeting, please consult help.webex.com. And after the meeting, please reach out to the district office at bk02.cb.nyc.gov. It is our desire to provide access for all of our neighbors, regardless of physical ability or limitation. So if you require any accommodation or assistance for full participation, please contact the district staff office before any public meeting, 72 hours in advance. We will now begin roll call. John Dew will read the names and committee members should introduce themselves by full name with their cameras on, please. Thanks.
You were breaking up, Julia. Did you ask me to call the roll?
Yes, please. Yeah, John, can you call the roll?
Our chair is here. Cheryl Gelbs. I see her. She's here. I'm here, the secretary. John Dew.
Wait, Taya, please unmute everybody so that they may respond and we can hear them.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
And then individuals, if you could unmute yourself too.
Juliet.
Here, present.
Cheryl.
Here.
On Quint, I'm here. John Dew.
Here.
Green Gallo.
Here.
Brian Howell.
Here.
I'm here, but I have my video is not working.
Audio, I will mark you present.
I can see you, but you can't see me.
Augustus. Boza.
John, did you call me? This is Patrick.
I didn't get to you yet. Sandy Balboza. Kalaki.
Yep.
Todd. Hi, Carolyn. I see you.
Oh, hey,
Speak.
John. Caroline here.
Okay, so we do have a quorum.
And John, I didn't catch who was on the phone. Is that Ernie
I didn't hear Ernie.
or Sid?
Sid's on Webex. He just doesn't have video.
Okay. Sandy and Ernie are not present, right?
That's correct as of now.
Okay, thank you very much.
And before, since not everybody is identified by their name, whether you're a presenter or when it comes time to speak, please identify yourself so I can have your name, and anybody who's a guest who is not, who wants to be recorded in the minutes as having been present, send an email to the board office indicating you were present during this meeting and your name will be on the guest list.
Thank you. Now, I would just like to share the agenda. Can I have sharing privileges?
Julia, go ahead.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out how to do that. Thank you, everybody, for your patience as we navigate this system.
I can do it for you, Juliet.
Okay, thank you, Carolyn.
Okay.
So while Carolyn is pulling that up, I would like to just ask, we're going to go through the approval of the agenda. And typically what we do for public comment is we have the committee members comment first, and then we have board members, and then we have the public. So we'll follow that protocol. We have bike lane updates tonight from DOT. We have changes to proposed, if you can scroll down as I'm going through this, Carolyn. Scroll down the agenda, please, so that everybody can see it. Thank you. Those are the bike lane updates from DOT. We have changes proposed to create more space for pedestrians and cyclists on the Brooklyn Bridge Promenade on the next page. And that is being presented by Paul Schreiber, who is a resident of Community District 2, and I understand also on transportation alternatives. Then we'll have our meeting minutes. During the chair's report, there are a couple items that I'd like to address. There is an Adams Street crossing by the Brooklyn Bridge that I had emailed to board members, committee members last night, and had previously been sent by the district office. I would like to talk about the recent events with the protests and the Black Lives Matter movement. And I would like to talk about the statement of district needs that we're supposed to get back to the community board on. After that will be community forum and other business, and then adjournment. So can I get an approval of the agenda, please?
So moved.
Great. Second?
Second from Patrick.
Great. All in favor? Aye.
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 Great. So because we have all of these items, I would like to ask DOT to, we do have a strict cutoff at 8 o'clock. So I may keep the presentation moving a little bit. So I would just like you to keep track of the time. And our first presenter from DOT, will that be Patrick Kennedy?
It can be, yes.
Are you presenting Smith and J Streets?
I'm presenting 4th Avenue.
Who is presenting Smith and J Streets?
Hayes Lord.
Hi, Hayes. Would you like to share your presentation?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
And while you're doing that, this is the secretary. Is this going to be available if anybody, after we finish the meeting, is it available online? Or will it be available?
Yes, it will be posted tomorrow.
And please send it to the board office also, so that if I need it for reference, they will be able to send it to me.
Certainly.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I want to thank everybody for allowing us to present tonight. Again, my name is Hayes Lord, and I'm with the Bicycle Unit with the Department of Transportation. I will just briefly, in the interest of time, talk with you about this very terrific project. By way of background, Smith Street was introduced back in 2016 when we were advancing the J Street project, but because of the different construction projects that were going along basically at the intersection of Skirmerhorn and Smith Street, we decided to hold off on that. So we're now coming back to the community board with the proposal, which I'll discuss in brief in a few minutes. So just by way of background, J Street was installed in late 2016. Unfortunately, due to other construction projects, we weren't able to complete the entire project. So we are coming back now to be able to do that. In addition, we've had the opportunity to be able to see the bike facility in operation and be able to see what tweaks could be made. and additions made. So what we're looking to do is making some minor modifications to the design, primarily around the Metro Tech bus stop, which I'll go into a little bit later. As you know, with the colleges expanding in along that particular corridor, as well as just the businesses at the time pre-pandemic, this whole corridor was bustling, and a lot of cyclists were coming to downtown, but there was not enough bike parking. So as part of this project, we're also looking to install bike corrals. We have the partnership with Downtown Brooklyn Partnership, who have been a great partnership with, plantings on the planters. I don't know if you've seen it, general maintenance along the corridor, and we're very pleased to have them. The other aspect of this design that we started to notice, as many people who have traveled through the Tillery Street intersection of J Street, is that it's a fairly complicated intersection. So what we're looking to do is to actually make a connection using Johnson Street for the one block between J Street and the Adam Street bike path, to be able to allow for easier and safer movement to cyclists who are looking to go to the Brooklyn Bridge.
Hayes?
Yes?
Hi, could you just maximize your screen by clicking on the double squares in the upper right, please?
Oh.
Not that one.
I'm
that
sorry.
One. Yep.
Sorry.
No problem.
Oh, something's happening.
Okay, you're going to want to click the X next to collections. Nope, not that one. Not that one.
This one?
Nope.
No.
To the right of the word collections. Go down about an inch.
About an inch. Oh, okay. That?
Yep. Close that one. Great, thank you so much.
That's doing it?
It should expand in a second. It's okay, just
Okay.
keep going.
Okay, so, and then also you probably heard from Mayor de Blasio that J Street has also been designated as a priority busway pilot location. So we are going to be incorporating bus lane designs moving into the future. So now, as you can imagine, the Smith Street design is basically very reflective of what we did on J Street. So there's no real changes in that regard. Can everybody see that okay?
Yes.
Okay. So again, there's going to be really no changes. Just by way of explaining the corridor of Smith Street, very much like portions of J Street, there's a lot of bus stops. So we're unable at this present time to do anything on those particular blocks. But what you see highlighted in green is where we're going to be putting in the protected bike lane. The one challenge behind Smith Street, as you know, is that up until Skirmahorn Street, Smith Street is one-way northbound, and then north of Skirmahorn, Smith and J are two-way. So that added some complexity to the design process. Now, as you've probably been seeing over the past several months, back in, I believe it was March, we started to install a temporary treatment. It's still a work in progress, especially now that more and more people are returning back to the corridor, as well as more people are cycling. So it's a ever-evolving process, but this is just demonstrating that we're very, very sincere and very interested in making improvements along this corridor. As a teaser, our bike volumes along that corridor for the count years that we were able to do it basically saw over a 20% increase in ridership during that time. You know, I don't have any June 2019 or 2020 counts, but I could definitely say that that volume has increased tremendously. So being able to provide more protection and a better infrastructure for cyclists now is really important. So again, J Street, Same design for those locations where we're looking to complete the project. So no surprises there. So let me draw your attention to the Myrtle Promenade crossing. Back in 2016, in consultation with New York City Transit, we developed this particular design shown in the existing conditions diagram. But after evaluating it a bit further, we definitely saw abuse of the slip lane, which is the lane just to the right of that crosswalk, and people parking in it, standing in the bike lane or even in the slip lane. So we saw it as an opportunity to actually make some changes, also because that's a major crossing for pedestrians going from the north side or the west side of the street to the east side of the street. So what we're proposing is really just to eliminate that slip lane entirely, build out in paint a pedestrian crossing on the east side of the street to be able to shorten the crossing, and then to be able to change the design slightly for the buses coming into the Metrotech bus stop, as well as to add some physical structures to the bike lane, because it's also getting periodically parked in, or buses are often blocking it. So we wanted to do something just to allow cyclists to safely move through this very large bus stop. Now, in terms of bike parking, our bike corrals are very popular. I'm showing a photograph on the left-hand side of one that we did on Fifth Avenue in Park Slope. They typically have 4 bike racks for 8 bikes. They can have planters, which in this particular design, they will have planters, and then followed by delineators. Whereas it's obvious where we're planning on putting those bike corral stations are basically right by the colleges and then in front of the Metrotech driveway. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the Brooklyn Bridge connection, we are looking to put bicycle infrastructure on Johnson Street. We're still sort of deciding what we want to do in this particular location. So we are going, we need a little bit more time. It's funny that it's only a block long, but we just want to do it right. So stay tuned. But I think once we make that connection, it's going to be a great connection to divert a lot of Brooklyn Bridge bound cyclists, away from Tillery Street. So finally, we plan to implement this project, or all these projects, during the summer of 2020. So with Smith Street, they'll get the protected bike lanes where we can. J Street, similarly, we'll update the design for the Myrtle Promenade crossing and then add the bike corrals. Johnson Street, that design is to come, but it'll be a nice simple design. And then all our designs will be incorporating the bus priority or the busway pilot project. And with that, I can open up the floor to questions.
Thank you, Hayes. If you have questions, please raise your hand, and in the chat, I will be texted that you have questions. So while I'm waiting for questions,
I don't know how to do that on my phone, Juliet.
Oh, is that John Dew?
That's
Yeah.
Sid.
Oh, it's Sid. Okay, Sid. Well, I'll
No,
call you in a
John,
second.
okay.
That sounds good.
Juliet, we do not currently have any hands raised. Oh, I'm sorry, Caroline Todd.
All right, great. Before we get to you, Sid and Caroline, Hayes, I'm happy that you addressed the Metrotech crossing on J Street. We did approve that when it came to the committee to put the bike lanes inboard to make the protected bike lanes. We have found afterwards that there's a conflict with pedestrians and the bicyclists at that crossing because it's not a car crossing. Sometimes the bicyclists don't stop for the light. And unless there's a herd of pedestrians crossing the street, there's often a conflict. So I'm wondering if there was any thought to addressing that.
I think part of the design is addressing that. I mean, you know, right now, I think the cyclists, because they get, you know, they are in the protected bike lane and then really have no traffic except for any buses that are pulling in. You know, they unfortunately decide to go through a red light. What I'm trying to mitigate with the design is to have the pedestrians step into the painted pedestrian island, so they are out of the way. So if there is a cyclist who chooses not to follow the law and runs the red light, at least the pedestrians will be in a safe place. So that's, yeah.
Would you consider a bike light just to reinforce that the light is, the traffic light is also for bicyclists?
We typically don't do that, so that would be an unusual instance. We usually just use the green ball, the typical traffic light, and so that's what we like to sort of use. But I can certainly bring it back to see, you know, what people are thinking. But if we do it at that particular location, then it opens up pretty much doing it almost at every location. So
no, this one is particular because there is no vehicular crossing. So that is why the MetroTech location is different from even what you've proposed on Smith Street, because all of the stoplights are at vehicular crossings.
right.
I will leave it there and then I'll open it up to other committee members.
It was not Sid, it was John Dew who spoke up, so.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so John, you can go first.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Do you hear
Yes.
me?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Hayes, do you have any accident data for that corridor? That's the first question. The second question is as it relates to the bus stop, the B54 terminal that's at the plaza. We had a presentation from the partnership where a recommendation was made to explore moving that B54 terminus from Myrtle Avenue to somewhere under the promenade to eliminate the conflict between the buses and the bikes.
Okay.
That's it for now.
So I'll respond to the second one first. That is the first time I've heard that, so I can explore that, certainly. And then the second, the first question is, do we have crash data? We do have crash data. I don't have it with me, but we could get it to you, certainly.
It would be helpful to share that with the community board that will share it with the committee. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And Caroline, Todd?
Great. Yes. Thanks, Hayes. I'm wondering about the protected lane on J/Smith where you turn left onto Skimmerhorn because you can't continue going further. Will there be any proposed changes for that intersection at Smith and Skimmerhorn?
No, that design will pretty much stay the same.
Can I encourage you to look at alternative options for making a safe turn from Smith, because it's a dead end there for down further south going cyclists?
Certainly.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
I just wanted to let people know, if you wanted to raise your hand, you can go to the participants panel, which is the person icon on the bottom, and you click on that, and then you see your name. There'll be a little hand by your name, and you click the raise hand icon. That's how you raise your hands. So it doesn't look like there are any other comments. People can add additional questions in the chat box if you'd like. And I will move on to the next presenter.
Jill, I have my hand raised in.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Brian.
I wanted to call attention to the intersection of J and Tillery Streets. I know approaching it from the south, the lane is incomplete, and that hopefully will be fixed as part of this project. But if the lane coming from the north is any guide of how this will be handled, the protected bike lane essentially disappears into a right-hand turn lane for vehicles going south on J, trying to turn west onto Artillery. And this creates a conflict between people who are trying to bike north and south on J Street to and from Manhattan Bridge, with drivers who are trying to turn onto Artillery. And I know we don't have any examples in New York City, but they are plenty around the world. There are some in other American cities. I think NACTO even has one in their guide, but I really call for a protected intersection at Artillery and J. One of the problems with protected bike lanes in New York City is that they disappear exactly when people biking need them most, which is intersections. And I just think it's really insufficient to have a protected bike lane disappear into a turn lane at the busiest crossing of the entire protected bike lane.
Thank you for your comment.
Hi, Juliet. Kevin Duggan's hand is raised.
Are there any other community board members before we get to Kevin? Thea? Okay, let's get to Kevin then. Kevin Duncan.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. I'm with the Brooklyn paper. I was wondering, I'm not sure if you mentioned this, the Johnson Street design to come, is that also being installed this summer?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. And one of the issues our offices are right by Metrotech, so I see this street like every day before the pandemic, and a lot of the lanes are blocked by law enforcement a lot of the time. Like it seems like a lot of the local police kind of leave their cars there and hang out like in the bus terminus. Usually when I ask DOT about this, they've said it's an enforcement question, but police themselves are the enforcers. So I was wondering if DOT is doing anything about this issue at that specific stretch.
At the present time, we recognize the issue and we've been addressing it. And right now we don't have the best solution, but we are going to continue to work on making sure that the placard parking at particular locations is mitigated and stopped.
That's all my questions. Thanks.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Thank you.
Denise. So now I would like to move on to the next update, which I believe is 4th Avenue between First Street and Flatbush Avenue. Who will be presenting that?
That will be Patrick Kennedy.
Great, Patrick, you're on.
Okay, just have to share my screen. So, share content. Does that work? Can everyone see this?
Yes.
Okay, all right, excellent. Okay, well, hi, my name is Patrick Kennedy. I'm a project manager with the bicycle program, and I am here to present to you our continuation of, or extension of the 4th Avenue protected bike lane. So we're going to be talking about some of the background and history of this project. It's been occurring in multiple phases. If any of you are familiar with 4th Avenue, you know that this is we've been working on this corridor for quite some time, and this is like the last piece that we're trying to finish. I'm going to go into the proposal just to talk about the details of what we're proposing, which also, if you've been following this project, should be some minor of review. And then I'll be talking about how we're going to make that work, just sort of the issues that we'll try to be addressing during the proposal, and I'm going to wrap it all up in a nice, neat summary. Okay, so first. So Vision Zero, as hopefully this is a review for a lot of you here at the community board, but it's our interagency plan to treat traffic crashes as preventable and try to solve that with through a design. 4th Avenue is a Vision Zero priority corridor, and it's one of the 4 Vision Zero great streets that we have designated. A little history on 4th Avenue. In 2013, we had a project where we reduced it to 2 lanes in most places, widened the median, and we were able to decrease crashes with injury and injuries for pedestrians and cyclists. So that project in itself was very successful. However, it did not include any protected bicycle facilities. This was something that then became the subject of a number of workshops, which were conducted back in 2017 for the most part, where people were able to just voice their concerns, talk about the corridor, reimagine it as something else. And then that led to, if you have been on 4th Avenue, it led to, for the most part, that corridor being transformed into a protected bike lane. We have been able to complete sections further south in the 60s, and then from the 1st to 15th Street. And then we were hoping to finish the section in between from 15th down to 60th. We got very close last year. We're hoping to finish the rest of that out this year. But this leaves one part of the corridor left that has not been started, and that's from Atlantic Avenue down to 1st Street, part of which is in CB2. So for the proposal, so this is the cross section that has been implemented on other parts of 4th Avenue. On the top, you can see the on the northbound side, on the right side, we have 3 northbound travel lanes. On the south side, we have two travel lanes, and that's the typical cross section for this section of 4th Avenue. I think there's 3 blocks at the bottom, closer to, I think, between Carroll and 1st, where it's only 2 northbound travel lanes, but for the most part, it's 3 north and then 2 south. Our proposal is to, much like the rest of 4th Avenue, to install protected bike lanes along both curbs. So we'd have 2 northbound travel lanes and 2 southbound travel lanes, parking offset from the curb, and then a protected bike lane along both sides. Then, of course, we're hoping to follow up with a capital design. That capital design has been, it's been basically chugging along, and we can talk about that later in the presentation. But right now, this is our proposal to get the temporary materials design in the ground as soon as possible. So for the intersections, we'll be using, much like the rest of 4th Avenue, we call the offset crossing model, where we have basically the intersection is daylit on both the north and the south sides with the pedestrian area. And then it forces the vehicles to slow when they're turning, and it allows for lots of visibility for both pedestrians who are crossing the street and for cyclists. It also requires less parking removal than our more traditional mixing zones, which we've used in the past. So here's what that would look like from the interim model that we're proposing now, and then to the capital build out, we'll be just taking those painted pedestrian spaces and changing them over to something in concrete. So for the specifics of the design, as I said before, 4th Avenue is 3 northbound travel lanes from Carroll up to Atlantic. And with that, for that section, we'd be taking it down from 3 down to 2. And then in the southbound direction, we'd be keeping the 2 travel lanes that are currently there. So just to we understand where all those locations are. Now, getting further north up to Times Plaza, this is where 4th Avenue intersects with Atlantic and then Flatbush. It's a very congested corridor. There's a lot of people moving through it, a lot of vehicles, a lot of pedestrians. It's a transit hub, a lot of cyclists. And for this, what our proposal is for, and I'm going to start with the northbound section first. So in that case, sort of the lower right-hand side of the screen, we'd be putting in a painted curb extension along the east curb, pushing out the curb to provide more curb space for pedestrians who are walking. and then having a curbside bike lane next to that. Northbound cyclists, when they approach Atlantic, would cross at the same time as pedestrians. Atlantic is a three-phase signal. The Atlantic and 4th is a three-phase signal. So we have 4th Avenue northbound goes, Atlantic goes, then 4th Avenue southbound goes. So it's three different phases. So we would have the northbound cyclists would be crossing at the same time as pedestrians who currently go during the southbound 4th Avenue vehicle phase. So when the vehicles that are coming from Flatbush are going, that's when pedestrians cross as well. So northbound cyclists will be crossing during that time. Going in between Atlantic and Flatbush, we'd be creating a connection through Times Plaza in advance of the capital work. You may notice that it's a dotted green line, not a solid green line. We are hoping to have, there's a capital project that is almost imminently beginning at that location. So we need to coordinate with that capital work. So we're hoping to have either a painted connection on the west curb for southbound cyclists, and then cyclists either up on the triangle or next to the triangle and protected in some fashion. But we're going to have to work with the capital construction in that location to try to come up with the best solution to get cyclists north and southbound safely through that section there. But to do that, we would also need to remove one lane of travel from that little section between Flatbush and Atlantic. We would do that by banning the southbound right turn for southbound vehicles there and removing that right turn lane. So we would take it from 3 lanes down to 2. It is a very, very light movement. So we wouldn't really be affecting much of the movements that are already going on there. And then also further north on sort of at the top of this graphic where there is a big white, a little two-way white arrow, we'd be creating a cyclist connection to Ashland Place and the Manhattan Bridge. Once again, because there is imminent capital work here, we have to basically try to get this either into the capital project or do something temporary in the interim to try to make this connection. We're exploring both like adding concrete, adding ramps here, or perhaps adding asphalt. We are trying to work with the existing the capital project there to try to figure out the best way to do this, because what we don't want to do is try to do something like make modifications to the curb and then have it torn out right afterwards. So we're trying our best to come up with the best solution that will work for the capital work that's about to start here. For the southbound direction, for cyclists coming south, coming through the Times Plaza area, once again, we'd be taking out that third travel lane for vehicles, so there'd be room for cyclists along the west curb. And then crossing Atlantic, then back down onto 4th Avenue at the south of Atlantic, we would need to remove parking on that block there, so between Atlantic and Pacific, to allow for to basically have room for the southbound bike lane to be there. Also, while I'm in this location of the slide, removing the pedestrian refuge island. With all the things that we're adding to this location here, especially with the extended ped space on the east side of 4th Avenue and Atlantic, sort of noted in the tan area there. We have to compress all the travel lanes together. So what we're doing is we're taking the pedestrian space that's in the middle and consolidating it to the east side of the street, so that we're able to allow for the buses to make their movements and to also be able to get in the protected bike lane in both directions on this block. So going on to making it work. For the parking impacts, we're looking at about 5 spaces per block to accommodate the pedestrian refuge islands. It's about 18 spaces in CB2, about 59 in CB6. So here's an example of that space we need, the daylighting of the intersection on both sides. So for double parking, which is actually an issue on this corridor, a significant issue on this corridor, We did conduct a time-lapse study to identify areas where the double parking was most prevalent. And we're looking at expanding our metered parking in this location. A lot of it south of Bergen is alternate side parking only. So we're looking at expanding metered parking. We'll have more on that later in the presentation. We also conducted an immersion survey to determine loading and delivery needs of businesses on 4th Avenue. And along with what we've done on the rest of the corridor, our goal is to install consistent loading zones and meter parking where needed. And then the traffic analysis that we conducted here. Initially, going from 3 lanes down to 2, you'd think that there's going to be a lot of congestion caused by that, but we were able to actually, without altering any of the actual signal phasing on 4th Avenue, we're able to extend green time for certain blocks leading up to Atlantic, which allows the same amount of vehicles that were passing in 3 lanes to now pass in only 2. So we're able to basically meet the current demand of the vehicles that are there to allow for us to make all the other improvements for pedestrians and cyclists on this corridor. So regarding curb management, here is between 1st and Atlantic. Noted in red are the locations. There are 11 locations where, or it's 11 blocks, where we're looking at installing a meter regulation instead of the alternate side. So yeah, starting down at 1st, we're also, and then going all the way up, it's sort of clustered around down by Union Street, and also then again around Bergen and St. Mark's. We're also looking at sort of at the sideways locations. There's one on Pacific, one on Bergen, one on St. Mark's, and then another on Union.
Patrick, you can focus on the CB2 related stuff, like the CB2 web
Sure.
access.
Sure. Okay. So that's only down to Warren. So that would be, I think it would only be Bergen. Yeah, only be the Bergen location. For that, we would only be we'd be looking at what's called a spur metered location, which is basically just on the side street instead of on 4th Avenue itself. Really, just because there is a high amount of commercial activity that's happening at that location, but that wouldn't be extending that far into the side street. So in summary, the cross section again, going from the 3 northbound travel lanes down to 2, installing protected bike lanes on both sides of the street, and with the offset parking and the pedestrian refuges at intersections. Here's another way to look at it, so the top-down view. So yeah, protected bike lanes, ped refuges, maintaining all the capacity for the existing vehicle volumes, meter parking, some parking loss, about 18 spots in CB2, and then continuing to coordinate with the capital build-out of 4th Avenue. There's several different capital projects that are happening all concurrently on 4th Avenue. So working with those and coordinating with our partner agencies to make sure that we're able to make a connection through Times Plaza. So that is the presentation. Are there any questions? And should I stop sharing my screen now? I'm just...
Oh, no, keep your screen up, Patrick. Thank you.
Sure.
I think with the questions, people may ask to go to different slides.
Sure, no problem.
I think your improvements to 4th Avenue are fantastic. I do think Times Plaza is a little bit confusing. We have had a lot of presentations about Times Plaza and a lot more detailed proposals. So I was wondering if you could go back to that slide.
Sure.
And maybe walk us through, for example, if the right lane turn from Flatbush Avenue onto 4th Avenue is getting eliminated, where do you foresee that traffic moving to, since 4th Avenue is such a strong southbound corridor? Is it moving down to 5th Avenue? Because 3rd Avenue is northbound only. So I'd like to understand that first of all.
Well, you mean the right turn lane that is on 4th Avenue between Flatbush and Atlantic, that one?
Is that what you're eliminating?
Yes, yeah, it's like a dotted red line there. It's like
Yeah.
that in the triangle. There's that short block between Flatbush and Atlantic. It's 3 lanes wide, and we're going down to 2 lanes. And to do that, we're eliminating the right turn lane. It's basically southbound 4th to Atlantic.
It is, yes, it is all the traffic from Flatbush Avenue that wants to get to Park Slope. That's going down 4th Avenue. Now we'll have to go down 5th Avenue. Is that, where is traffic? Where are you expecting traffic to be redirected?
No,
Southbound?
we're not eliminating the ability for people to exit from Flatbush to 4th Avenue.
Oh, okay.
Once you're on that little that short block there, people making the turn from southbound 4th to Atlantic Avenue, to westbound Atlantic.
You're limiting the right-hand turn from 4th to Atlantic, not from Flatbush to 4th.
Yes,
I see.
what you're describing, the Flatbush to 4th, is a very heavy movement.
Yeah.
I'm describing that's a very light movement. Not many people actually make that right-hand turn there. Mostly because they're deterred by the amount of people who just want to head south on 4th Avenue.
How would they access Atlantic Avenue otherwise?
Otherwise, they would. I mean, they'd have to go past, I think, to 5th and then around, or people could go south on Nevins and then over on Atlantic and be on the other side of the street.
Okay. I'm going to ask, I don't know who has their hands raised. I'm going to ask Brian if you have comments on this as a bike person.
I just sorry, I must have missed it. Why is the rubber pedestrian refuge island being removed?
Because with the addition of the bike lanes on both sides, we have to deal with the bus turn from, what is it, eastbound Atlantic to southbound 4th. So we have to deal with the amount of that bus has a sweep because it's coming from the curb on Atlantic Avenue. It goes to 4th Avenue because the stop is right there. So there are challenges with the turn for the bus, but also because we need to keep all of the vehicle lanes that are here. So there's 3 northbound lanes and 2 southbound lanes, plus 2 bike lanes. The space, we can't make enough space in the middle for an island. So the best place for that space to be reallocated is along the east curb, where we already have a lot of extra space to begin with, because there's a shift in alignment on the east curb of 4th Avenue between Atlantic and Pacific. So our plan is to build that out, to push that further out to make a wider sidewalk to shorten the crossing that way.
Okay, just to be clear, the buses turning from Atlantic onto 4th would now, because of the southbound bike lanes, sweep into the area that's currently occupied by the pedestrian island.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Also, we'd be pushing all of the northbound lanes a little bit further to the west. So it just narrows the space in the middle of the street when we add in the bike lanes on the curves.
Thank you.
Juliet, next is Caroline.
Please go ahead, Caroline.
All right, didn't know I had my hand raised, but I do like the protected bike lanes here, and I'm glad that they're being extended sooner than we thought. I guess my question is about signals. How much work will go into changing signals for pedestrians and for people trying to cross the street as a car or as a person or a bus?
So there's actually minimal. There are very minimal. There aren't any what we call phasing changes. I mean, like adding a left turn arrow or something like that. We're not changing any of that. Most of the changes we're making are in the timing.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have to add any new hardware. The only new hardware we need to add in this location is actually at Times Plaza, and that's for northbound cyclists, so that they have they know when to go.
Cool. That sounds like a great addition, but I am mostly curious about the timing and how and when that will be determined.
Meaning the timing further down the corridor?
The timing for someone to cross 4th Avenue on Atlantic. And
We're actually not making any timing changes to the 4th and Atlantic intersection.
okay, that's interesting. Thanks.
Yeah, the way the traffic works, or the way that we're able to make this work for vehicular capacity is actually to change the intersections leading up to Atlantic and 4th.
Juliet, I have a question.
Please go ahead, John.
Actually, it's not a question. In our past communications with DOT for projects, we had asked that you come with numbers, specifically traffic counts, so we can have a greater sense of the kind of traffic that we are looking to impact. The other thing we had asked for and we were told was going to happen with these types of projects is the time-lapse photography that would give a sense of how the particular intersection is currently functioning versus what you were going to look to correct. So it's difficult to contemplate all of these changes and the impacts that you're suggesting will happen without actually knowing what is existing today. And the last item has to do with the changes that we are making. I know DOT is hesitant to want to install permanent signage. However, if in an appropriate location, it would be advisable to install some temporary signage that alerts both pedestrians and bicyclists, as well as car drivers, to the changes that are being implemented, so that there is a visual description of the difference in whatever the transacting in that particular intersection is going to be. And it could be temporary. It could be a week or 2 weeks, but those folk who frequent would understand that there's going to be this type of change and how they're going to negotiate this particular corner.
Okay,
That's it.
Okay.
Patrick, do you have any responses to that, or you're just going to take that back?
Yeah. So we, for the time-lapse photography and for the traffic studies, I mean, we can definitely get you some of the more concrete numbers we had come up with. It's just that this is a long corridor and it's a very short presentation with a limited time. So we wanted to try to like if we hadn't included that information, we'd still be talking about it now. But we can definitely provide it to you, especially the results of the time-lapse photography.
Great.
It's been collated, it's been analyzed, so yeah, we can definitely do that.
Thank you.
Thank
now,
you.
I'm gonna look into. Oh, go ahead, Sid. Sid, we can't hear you if you're talking. You may be muted.
Sid, go ahead and talk. You're unmuted.
He wrote his question in the comments. Maybe it's helpful if I read it. How would the southbound trucks get to 4th Ave? You can make the right turn southbound from 2 lanes. And then he notes that it says right here, ban right turn
Trucks can make the right from Flatbush to 4th Avenue, right?
No, we're not banning any rights from Flatbush. We're banning the right from southbound 4th to westbound Atlantic.
Right. So I think Sid was confused like I was.
Kevin?
No, I'm all good. Thanks.
And if any other community members want to chat, they can click the talk bubble that's in their menu bar at the bottom, and they can ask questions in that too.
Hello.
Paul.
Yes, we hear you.
Hi.
Juliet, Paul, I'm sorry. Paul Schreiber put his hand up a while ago as well.
Oh, thanks, Carolyn. I can't see anybody's hands, Carolyn.
I know.
So, okay, Paul.
Hi, Patrick. I
really like what you're doing to Fourth Avenue. It is an area that's been pretty dangerous, and I'm glad to see what's going on. I have a question regarding the blocks where you're changing alternates like parking meters. Have you considered implementing loading zones on those blocks as a way to mitigate some of the double parking problem?
So in our analysis, which once again I will send to the board, we found it was actually mostly private vehicles or for-hire vehicles, like smaller vehicles that were actually doing all the double parking.
Okay.
So with that, encouraging turnover and having meter parking instead of alternate side is according to at least our parking Bureau of Parking, is the most prudent response.
Okay.
This is something, I mean, these are parking regulations and we can change meters as we need to. So if we find that we have a commercial parking issue for loading, it's something we can definitely address.
Yeah. Just to add on to that, in California, there are curbs that are premium for like passenger loading, not just commercial loading. And I don't know if that's something that's done in other places in New York, but that might be something we could do here to give people, like, reserve one spot for passenger pickup and drop off.
Yeah, like once again, if we like, you know, if we find that there are areas where there's lots of pickups and drop-offs being happening, and the regs that we have changed or the changes we've made are not helpful. I mean, parking regs are the easiest thing to change. Like they're the quickest. All you have to do is change a sign and update a computer. So it's something that we could definitely modify if needed.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. Caroline, anybody else?
Yes, we have one more, Latrell Mosso, board member.
Yes, please, Latrell.
Hi, I want to know about the accessibility for people with disabilities like visual impairment with the new changes. Did we think about that piece?
Yes, we do. I'm just going to go to a slide which, yeah. So here we keep all vertical elements on the roadway clear of the crosswalk, yeah, all the installations we're doing with the paint at least are flush with the roadway. Once the capital version comes in, there is a cut through the crosswalk to preserve accessibility. We'll have tactile warning strips. They had not been installed yet at this location in the paint, but that is something that goes in to all of our protected bike lane projects to keep people from the blind from walking into the street. Yeah, that we're definitely thinking about accessibility as part of this project.
And what about, I'm not sure, but when you cross the street, I know on, I believe it's Court Street by the Duane Reade, downtown Brooklyn, they have the button to press so you can know, like, when can you cross the street? Would that be, is that there already? Or is that something that you can think about?
Buttons is part of this proposal. I know that there are we also have the audio pedestrian signals as well. I know that that's a program we're rolling out. I can look into that program to see if there are any locations along this corridor where they will be making these installations, but nothing's being proposed as part of this project. It doesn't mean we're not doing it though.
Thank you.
Sid is back.
Sid, did you have another question? I don't think that we're able to hear Sid.
Sid, your microphone is unmuted. You can go ahead and talk.
We can't hear you, Sid.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Okay, I'm fine with what's going on. They answered my question. We can move forward. Goodbye.
Thank you. All right,
You're
great.
welcome. Thank you.
So thank you, Patrick. I think we'll move on to the next part of the bike lane presentation.
Excellent, thank you.
And would that be Preston?
Yes.
Great. Preston, are you presenting Ashland Place?
Navy Street.
Navy Street, okay. And are we skipping Ashland Place?
Hi, Juliet. This is Emily. I spoke with Rob earlier a couple of days ago that said we're not ready to move forward or present Ashland. He just wanted to let me to let you know that.
Thank you.
And we'll be going into Sands.
Okay, and Emily, could you introduce yourself to the committee?
Yeah, hi, my name is Emily Riquelme. I am the DOT liaison for the community board here.
And just to let the other committee members know, Diana Soriano is on long-term leave. Okay, Preston, feel free to share your screen whenever you are ready.
Oh, yeah. Let me get back to that.
And while he's doing that, after Department of Transportation is done with these bike lane updates, we would welcome you and we would like you to stay for the subsequent discussion from the resident Paul Schreiber on the Brooklyn Bridge.
Yep.
Thank you.
Preston, if you could maximize your screen, please, that'd be great. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay. My name's Preston Johnson. Thanks for letting me speak about Navy Street. I'll be the project manager. I'm with the New York City Department of Transportation Bicycle Unit. Okay, the project area that I'll be discussing today is only a block long. It extends from Sand Street to Flushing Avenue. Sand Street had a separated path constructed in 2009, and that coincided with some of the large increases of bicycle volumes that we began to see going across the Manhattan Bridge. And at Flushing Avenue, a bicycle lane was installed in 2010, and currently a separated path is being completed. Navy Street has had a bike lane since 2004, but despite these volumes, this one block will represent sort of a less protected bicycle infrastructure than what you're going to see on Sand Street and Flushing and on the Brooklyn Waterfront Greenway going east to Greenpoint. So as a result of the access to the Manhattan Bridge, we're seeing really high bicycle volumes. Yet the standard bicycle lanes can be vulnerable to double parking. Sometimes drivers will actually drive in it to overtake the congestion as people are trying to turn left. The northbound vehicles turning left onto Sand Street. And so there are a lot of conflicts here that we hope that this project can try to resolve and make the street safer for all street users. So as I say, this is just a block-long project, but the number of crashes is pretty high, and it's well above average for Brooklyn as a whole, and the number of cyclists that are severely injured as a result of these traffic crashes is it's 60% of the total. And so, it's just kind of more incentive to try to deal with some of these conflicts. And so as I was alluding to, kind of what we have right now. So Navy Street, if you're going northbound, almost all of the people on bicycles and most of the people driving are turning left onto Sand Street. And so currently there are two legal ways that you can make that left turn if you're riding a bicycle and arrive on a green light. One way would be to leave the bicycle lane and go into the lane of traffic and then make the turn sort of as a vehicle. Otherwise, you could stay in the bicycle lane and stop at the intersection and make kind of what we call like a two-stage turn, a two-stage left turn. You would wait until Sand Street got a green light, and then you would proceed to cross. But what we're seeing, because of all of this congestion, and sometimes, like I was saying, the bike lane might be blocked. Sometimes there might actually be people driving in the bike lane. You're seeing cyclists actually go against traffic and ride on the left side of Navy Street. And it creates like a lot of unpredictability and just more risky behavior that we would like to provide a safer alternative for people on bicycles. So that said, the goals of this project are to upgrade this 1 block long part of the bike route to the Manhattan Bridge. And also by organizing traffic, creating some traffic calming, we're hoping that all street users will benefit, including pedestrians. And we're hoping to improve this comfort and safety for bikes, both by eliminating the double parking in the bike lane and sort of increasing the distance between people on a bike and then people in a motor vehicle, whether it's a truck or a bus. And we're also trying to organize the traffic that can reduce that wrong way cycling and reduce the turning conflicts. And we're trying to achieve all these goals while maintaining the motor vehicle circulation. This project has no changes in moving lanes or turn lanes, and so I will show you what we're proposing. So this is a section of Navy Street. You're looking north here. Basically on the west side of the street, we're mostly keeping things as it is. The parking lane stays there. That southbound bike lane stays there. There's a moving lane in each direction, and we will maintain the turn lanes at Sand Street and at Flushing Avenue. And where the difference is on the right side of the street, the east side, where we're upgrading that standard bike lane and creating a two-way protected bike lane alongside the curb. And so that also necessitates removing parking and relocating a bus stop. Okay, so this is the intersection at Sand Street and Navy Street, and so north is on the left side. So what you see is the protected bike lane on the top on that east curb, and you see on the south side. There's continues to be the bike lane. So if you're on a bike and you are coming from the Manhattan Bridge or coming from Sand Street, that bike lane will still exist going southbound if you continue to go to continue on Navy Street to Ashland Place and maybe over to Patrick's project on 4th Avenue. We're not asking people to like cross the street and then cross back again. So, but if you instead are on a bike coming from Sand Street and intend to go to the Brooklyn Waterfront Greenway on Flushing Avenue, what you do, your sort of most convenient option will be to cross over to the far side and use that protected lane and then be able to make that left turn really safely onto Flushing Avenue. So what you're seeing in this this plan is where the bus stop at the southeast corner of Navy and Sand Street is going to have to be relocated because the buses split there. There'll be two different locations for the new bus stops. The B62 will be on. It'll remain on Navy Street and be on the north side of the street. Currently, the sidewalk is in pretty poor condition there, and so we'll rebuild the sidewalk and the curb to make sure that that is an accessible bus stop. And then the other bus stop will be on Sand Street, and that'll have the B57 and the B69. And so if you're familiar with the area, those two locations were actually bus stops for this during the construction on the Navy Yard, and they've just recently been kind of returned here, and then we are now proposing to relocate them to where the temporary stops were previously. So you've already gotten a couple examples of these types of projects, but I just want to reiterate how we've done these types of projects all throughout the city. We see great benefits, 15% drops in crashes with injuries, and even pedestrian injuries, especially pedestrian injuries, like 21% drops. And so we're hoping by organizing the traffic that we can see those types of improvement on Navy Street as well. And just to wrap up, I think what we're trying to do is to upgrade this this one block stretch so that it is of the same type of protection for people on bicycles that they're going to experience on Flushing Avenue and what they already experience on Sand Street. And I think by providing people riding bikes a safer alternative, what you're going to see is like fewer people kind of making that risky maneuver to ride against traffic. I think when they have a protected lane, they're going to, they're not going to try to weave through traffic as to the same degree what they're doing right now. And I think that predictability will have benefits for pedestrians, people driving, and of course the cyclists themselves. And so, I think, as I said before, we're trying to maintain traffic capacity. There's no change in the moving lanes, the turn lanes. So I think we'll see a lot of safety benefits without any drawbacks. And I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Preston. I wanted to ask, why aren't the bike lanes raised like the Greenway lanes on Flushing Avenue with a landscape buffer instead of an at-grade buffer with the bollards, the flexible bollards?
Well, kind of going back to, pardon me?
Is it just budgetary? Because it would be a lot nicer to have a continuation of the Greenway between Flushing Avenue all the way around to the Sand Street entrance to the bridge.
Okay. Sort of as Patrick was explaining in his presentation, we focus on kind of the in-house type of projects that can be sort of quickly implemented. And that's what we're showing, here. If we were to build the Greenway to match what's on Flushing, it would entail sort of a street reconstruction that would, first of all, take much longer, but it also kind of incorporate lots of other, drainage and all sorts of issues that we're not really forced to deal with right now.
Okay, but it doesn't preclude a future
not at all.
style development. Okay, great. Then it's a great addition. Yeah. Caroline, can you tell me who has their hands raised?
John Dew has a question for sure.
And
Let's
John
let
Quinn.
go while we're looking.
So sorry.
Oh, we haven't heard from Doreen too. John, can we let Doreen have the floor?
Sure, absolutely.
Go for it, Doreen.
Thanks Thank you. Well, I drive this stretch very often, so I'm like, love all these proposals. I hope they work out. I'm in agreement with Juliet. I kind of like that extra added safety feature of like a raised that the bike lane on Flushing Avenue. It's, it's so great to see people be safe, and it just looks better. It just feels really like there's a separation. And this stretch, every time I drive there, it's a nightmare. I'm always thinking that, I'm watching cyclists are forced to have to weave in and out because of, what the vehicles do. I just really want to commend you for focusing on this one block. But I would, in every single case, I would just hope that you would go over it again and try to even make it even safer. It's a very dangerous little block here, but it does a lot of things, and a lot of people use it, which is great to see. But I'm always having a heart attack. So, is there a way to implement what Juliet had suggested about the way it was handled in Flushing Avenue, especially at the turn? I feel like the intersections can be a little tweaked a little bit because, like,
Yeah,
when you're
definitely.
making the right, I just always feel like someone's going to run over a bicyclist, including me. I hope when I die, I have not run over anyone. So, sorry, I am a careful driver, but so yeah, I guess that's my question. Is
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know right now like what the timetable is for to rebuilding the street there, but I mean it's definitely a candidate.
Have you talked to the Brooklyn Greenway Initiatives people about this proposal already?
I haven't personally, but this is a long-standing kind of goal.
They were waiting to hear from DOT about what is happening in this intersection. They have said that nobody has been keeping them in the loop. So please do
that's
reach
good
out to
know.
them specifically.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. John, I know you're waiting.
Speaking, Juliet, if I could build on your communication. This street is next to the Farragut housing projects, and the Church of the Open Door, Reverend Mark Taylor. Any changes that are being proposed specifically with a reduction of parking and the like, I would ask that you consider reaching out to Reverend Taylor and to the head of the Farragut Tenant Association to give them an update on this proposal.
Can you say his name again?
Reverend Mark Taylor, Church of the Open Door.
Thank you.
And Mary,
Julie, there's someone JQ is asking to speak. I'm not sure if that's John.
Yes, it is. It is. How many parking spaces are going to be lost?
14.
I have to
All
say,
on that
John, those
east.
parking spaces weren't used very often because it was a construction zone for construction zone for the past 3 years.
That's exactly.
Yeah, they weren't.
Yeah.
A real loss, I feel.
Well, the loss. Oh, sorry. Can I raise my hand?
Well, yeah. Let me finish.
Okay.
And this is sort of going back on what Brian Howell said about you're building these lanes, but you're not dealing with the intersection. You're still forcing the bicyclists, the northbound bicyclists who are going to turn onto Sands. You're still forcing them into the intersection with no real guidance. And because once they get to the there is no Sand Street on the right, but once they get into what would be the continuation of Sand Street, they're now out in the open. And while the major traffic that's moving on Sands turns onto Navy, makes a right onto Navy, and doesn't make a left onto, I guess that's northbound Navy, they're still in the intersection. So they're still susceptible, And how do you stop the traffic the bicycle traffic that now makes that illegal switch to the wrong way of Navy? How are you going to stop them from doing that? They're still going to be, they're going to be imprinted with, that's the best way to avoid the conflict and still move into the wrong way on Navy.
Well, like as I was saying, our experience is when you provide people a safer alternative, they usually take it. So, for instance, when we worked on Prospect Park West, we used to see something about like 30% of the people on bike. That's not anything that anyone wants to see. But as soon as we provided a safe and legal alternative to ride your bike northbound and southbound, that really just evaporated, and you just don't really see that kind of behavior much anymore. And so, I mean, we can't, there may still be people that make that movement, but I think by providing people a safe, legal way to find another way across the street, I think you'll see many fewer people going against traffic.
And how long has there been parking allowed? It wasn't allowed for a period of time, but how long has parking been allowed on that stretch that you're now going to officially eliminate?
I'm not absolutely sure when it returned. Has it been a year? I don't think it's been a year.
John. So last fall.
So it's been less than a year, but do you know what the usage has been? Have you had any photography or survey to see whether that parking's being used?
Just informally. But no, we haven't done a formal, time lapse or anything like that.
What's the informal? Is it usually
just, when we're out there and observing, and I think in my experience it wasn't 100%, but it's pretty well used as Brooklyn parking typically is.
What is it now? Is it alternate side or is it?
Yes.
Okay, so it's other than the alternate side, it's available.
How do you mean?
Well, I mean, there's no other restriction,
There was a bike lane, there was a bus stop there, John. So that took up a chunk of it too.
Okay.
I got to repeat my point that the community that's directly affected has to be consulted with all of these changes.
And Emily, that's a general statement for Community Board 2 initiatives from DOT. Not just reaching out to actually coming to the community board, but we'd like you to reach out to other members of the community that are affected by this as well.
Okay, I'm gonna put my email in the chat. So if anybody has any questions or comments outside the transportation committee meeting, they can reach out to me directly.
That's very nice and open. Thank you very much.
The trial.
We're going to take one more question, and then anybody else will have to put it in the chat because we need to move on to the next topic.
Okay, I'm going to be really quick. As far as the community, I have family members in Farragut Housing Development, and there's a parking as it is. It's very hard for people to find parking in that area. And as far as the church, yes, you should reach out to Pastor Mark V.C. Taylor at the Church of the Open Door. And the Tenant Association president is Mary Andrews. So, and to let them know what's going on if you're planning to make any changes in the community out of respect. And also to make sure that if you are putting more bike lanes as a visual impaired individual, I would expect for it to be accessibility for people with disabilities. So we could be able to see to cross the street. And so as far as, the people on the bike won't get hurt, as far as we won't get hurt in the process.
I'm sorry, can you repeat what you would like to see with the visually impaired?
more accessibility. So, so people, by us crossing the street, we won't be hurt. Like we could know, like maybe, like I said before, on by Dwayne Reed on Court Street, they have a button that you could press when you cross the street. So just to be, more mindful, like people who who use canes when they walk, so they could know like there's something there. So it's because right now in some of the bike lanes, it's just like nothing's there. So it needs to be more accommodation set.
Okay, I understand.
All right, Brian,
Yes.
hand raised the entire time, so please go quickly, Brian.
So I think this is great. The one missing link in this is that when EDC built out the Flushing Greenway, I mean, it's still somewhat in construction. There's about 300 feet east of Navy on Flushing, the Greenway narrows from 8 feet to 4 feet, and there is no eastbound bike lane between Navy and 300 feet east of Navy. And so this would be great to wrap around Navy Yard, except that DDC decided to put in a turn lane for Wegmans against the vote and the wishes of Community Board 2 for the last 10 years. So I'm just curious how you expect people who are heading south on Navy here to access the Greenway going east.
Brian, I'm going to jump in. That is not completed yet. There was only a temporary, all of that stuff on Flushing Avenue in front of Wegmans is temporary because DDC's contractors haven't gotten there yet.
I mean,
all of that gets ripped up by DDC this summer, and they're putting in the two-way bike lane on the north side of Flushing Avenue. Yeah.
Okay, because they build new stuff and they put in a turn lane, and okay,
Yeah, it was temporary. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Preston.
Thank you.
Does that conclude the Department of Transportation's presentations?
Yeah. You've asked me to stay on later, so anybody else from the bike unit, you guys can.
Well, I would like them to stay because Paul Schreiber has bike recommendations. So whoever is available to stay for the next one, I imagine it'll be 15 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you. So Paul?
I'll stay on.
Hi, Paul, you're muted. Could we get Paul unmuted? Hey, good.
Would you like me to go ahead?
Yes, please.
Hi everyone. My name is Paul Schreiber. I live in Boerum Hill here in CB2, and I'm here to talk about cyclist and pedestrian capacity on the Manhattan and Brooklyn bridges. Over the past decade, as New York City has added safe places for people to bike, such as protected lanes, we have seen a large increase in folks riding bicycles. This year, as a result of the COVID pandemic, even more people have taken up bicycling as a way to get to work, to home, and to pick up essential goods like groceries and medication. We already had a pressing need for more capacity. The pandemic has exacerbated this need. The Brooklyn and Manhattan bridges are already over capacity and cannot accommodate any more riders or pedestrians. The DOT has proposed a study to determine if the Brooklyn Bridge can hold additional weight. That study and any resulting work will take many years to complete. Converting existing traffic lanes to bike lanes is a much faster solution. I'm asking Community Board 2 to formally request DOT take 2 steps. One is to increase bike capacity on the bridges by converting existing car space. And secondly, to improve infrastructure for bikes on both sides of both bridges by adding protected lanes onto approaches. And separately, there's a problem with the overcrowding on the Brooklyn Bridge. There are too many vendors and there are police vehicles in the middle of this bridge and on the Manhattan side. And I would ask that further CB2 ask DOT and NYPD to come up with a plan to remove these obstacles. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. I do have to say that that last part of your recommendation or suggestion is outside of CB2's purview because it's on the Manhattan side of the bridge. But it sounds like he's requesting that CB2 ask Department of Transportation to study increasing bike capacity on both bridges and then also having a protected route for the bicyclists on the Brooklyn Bridge.
Correct.
right?
And yes, and some of the obstructions are on the Manhattan side, but some are on the Brooklyn side as well.
Okay. Is there any discussion? From committee members first, please.
Well, may I? Julia, it's John. Quint. Can you
Yes.
hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
I agree that there has to be some work on that, but I also have to say, as a user of the bridge every day, walking over the Brooklyn Bridge every day and the Manhattan Bridge occasionally, one of the issues that we've raised before, and I think it's even part of when we've on our statement of district needs, is that on the Manhattan Bridge, there are too many bicyclists on the pedestrian side. They are not, there's no signage. There used to be signage. There's very little signage on either end of the south side, south walkway, now the pedestrian walkway of the Manhattan Bridge, to keep bicyclists from going on there, especially with the way they've changed the entrance from J Street that allows bikes to enter into what used to be, what is still a sort of a pedestrian park, a small park at the bottom of the pedestrian walkway. Bicyclists are going into that area and continuing on the south side of the Manhattan Bridge walkway and not going over to the north side. And there used to be, when there was work going on, there were plastic jersey barriers that made it with signs on them that made it clear that bikes were not supposed to be there. But now there's just one small sign for pedestrians, and the absence of a sign indicating no bicycles have invited all the bicycles to use that, especially now that they're doing repairs to the fencing along the south walkway, has narrowed the width of the pedestrian path to 1 person wide, and the interactions between bicycles and pedestrians is severe. And on the Manhattan Brooklyn Bridge, I've noted recently that the scooters have been gone, which is a welcome sight, but I don't think that's going to be a permanent situation. And there is, and there will soon be, as the phases, as we go into the higher number phases, I expect that the pedestrian traffic, and especially when tourists return, there's going to be a much greater use of the Brooklyn Bridge. Not that there hasn't been an overwhelming use of it before the pause. That makes it very difficult for bikes. And I don't think the bikes are there's not enough enforcement to both pedestrians and bicyclists. So it's more than just the issue of doing all the things that Paul has suggested. And I agree with him, even though I agree with Juliet that the vendors are not part of our purview. But I think when DOT takes a look at the entire use of the walkways, they have to deal with the vendors, and they should know now that our view is that there has to be some supervision of the vendors and some control of the vendors.
John, would you like to make a motion?
Well, Sid Meyer, can I say something? Can you hear me now?
I'm sorry, I don't
Can
know
you
who.
hear me?
Is that Sid?
It's Sid Meyer.
Okay, yes.
The DOT study, I was told that the DOT study of adding a more place for bicycles was complete, and that I actually made a FOIL request for a copy of the report, and I was denied it because it was an interagency report. But I was told that the initial review by the consultants was in fact complete about adding more, to be able to add over the roadway additional space for people to either walk or bike.
Emily, can you speak to that?
Yes, there was a study done for the pedestrian walkway on the Brooklyn Bridge. The feasibility was unfounded. So all I can tell you is right now, DOT is in talks with the mayor's office and City Hall for conducting a study about the feasibility of a bikeway on the main line of the Brooklyn Bridge, and you may hear about that in the coming weeks.
When you say the main line, you mean a traffic lane?
Yes.
Great. So that's exactly what Paul was asking for.
Yep.
So since the study is already underway, I was going to.
It's still being discussed.
Would it be helpful if we made a motion to recommend that it be studied?
If you made a recommendation, I would take that recommendation to the appropriate union.
But before I make the motion, let me just ask you again, Emily, when you said, because my audio broke up, that the study of changing the pedestrian walkway was unfeasible, and therefore there's that the idea of expanding it just is not going to take place, or not going to go any further.
Yes.
Okay. So I would make a motion then that we urge DOT in regard to the Brooklyn Bridge pedestrian and bicycle usage, that the DOT study using current vehicular lanes for bike traffic so as to relieve the volume of to allow for a greater volume of pedestrians on the present walkway, and that they also look into finding a way of limiting the use of the walkway by vendors on the Manhattan side, so that the flow from Brooklyn to Manhattan or from Manhattan to Brooklyn would be unimpeded.
Vendors are
I second it.
jurisdiction.
I second the motion.
Thank you, Sid.
Can I this is Patrick, just with a comment. I've long thought that the pedestrian bike interaction on the Brooklyn Bridge is quite dangerous, and that bikes simply have to go slower. So is it possible, and maybe this was part of the proposal, I missed it, but to actually eliminate bikes from the pedestrian walkway so that you'd or limit them to like 5 miles per hour or some really constrained speed.
Yeah, no, you move it to the road. You move it to the roadway.
Well, I guess the question then is to Emily, if the study of using traffic lanes for bikes with the intention of making that the exclusive way that bikes are going to cross the bridge.
I can't speak on it yet. There has not been a study conducted, so I have no information to give you beyond that.
Well, I think it's important to include that as one of the options considered. I mean, I think that the pedestrian bike interaction on the walkway is basically a death or serious injury waiting to happen. I'd love to see the stats on it.
I'm writing I made the motion. I'm going to write it up when it comes out of the minutes. And I would certainly say that would be my intention, is to eliminate any interaction between pedestrians and bikes, so that bikes have their own traffic lanes taken by using present vehicle lanes, and that the present walkway be exclusively a walkway and not a bikeway.
John, that's perfect. Please make sure to include the Manhattan Bridge as part of your resolution as well.
Well, I'm not
Manhattan
sure.
Bridge is much easier.
But I'm not sure. Are you? I don't know. I see too many bikes on the pedestrian side of the Manhattan Bridge. But is there any indication that there is since they've already got an exclusive, supposed to use it only for bikes on the north side of the Manhattan Bridge, is that so busy that more volume needs to be provided for?
Yeah, that's pretty busy, and it's getting busier. And then you would provide additional pedestrian capacity as well, because you could repurpose that old bike path as a second pedestrian path.
I really don't think that, my opinion is that the Manhattan Bridge is not conducive to this. I mean, that's basically a highway. But
Let's
I
take it
think-
one at a time. How about we?
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Why don't we vote on John's proposal first, and then if we want to do one for the
Yeah, I
Manhattan
want to
Bridge,
limit my motion to the Brooklyn Bridge. If somebody else wants to make the motion on the Manhattan Bridge, because they really are separate, because I think that even though there are 5 Manhattan-bound traffic lanes on the Manhattan Bridge, it would not be hard to take one of those away. I don't think the geometry at either end would be very good for that, because of the separation between the bike lane, the entrance to the bike lanes on both sides of the bridge have no interaction with any of the vehicular traffic.
Okay.
And it's a completely different issue.
Wait. Hold on. Wait. I don't want to complicate this, but would it be at all possible to turn each bridge into a one-way bike lane? I mean, the flow is so tremendous. So Manhattan into Manhattan Bridge, Brooklyn back into Brooklyn. And that would increase the capacity of that bike lane on the Manhattan Bridge.
I think that would be part of their study, Patrick. We're just asking them to study using traffic lanes for bike lanes on the Brooklyn Bridge.
Okay.
Why don't we have focus, one about the Brooklyn Bridge and one about the Manhattan Bridge?
Right.
My motion was limited to the Brooklyn Bridge.
Okay, and that's seconded by Sid, so that's on the table right now, and we're going to take the vote.
Sorry.
Do we need to do a roll call vote?
I think
Brian? Yeah, Brian, go ahead.
I just wanted to speak to what was said at the beginning. The reason there are so many conflicts on the Brooklyn Bridge is because there's not enough space for people to walk and bike, and the vendor conflicts are really just because of that. Because people walking and biking are forced into a path that gets as narrow as 8 feet, that every sort of incursion to this path becomes problematic. And just to remember that these are symptoms of the problem, which is that not enough space is being allocated to people biking.
Now, the other problem with the Brooklyn Bridge is that it has the cables that are exposed on the walkway, and there are constantly narrowing and widening points. What?
Guys, we need to get to a lot of other things, so I want to do the vote, unless somebody has something to say about the actual voting yes or no.
I mean, we have 10 minutes left, Juliet.
Okay, do we have to do a roll call vote, Carol Ann?
Yes, it's best.
Okay, John, can you read the attendance sheet? Take the roll.
Yeah, and I think, has Ernie Augustus joined? Because I saw an Ernest on the participant level. Did either Sandy or Ernie come on?
I haven't seen them.
Okay.
There was a beginning of the name Ernest on the participant list. I don't know if that was, but he's not speaking up. So okay. Juliet?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
Me, aye. John Dew?
Aye.
Maureen?
Who?
Maureen?
Who?
That's so sad.
Doreen.
Oh, Doreen, she left.
Oh, all right. Brian?
Aye.
Sid?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
Carolyn?
Aye.
So that's 2, 4, 6,
Unanimous.
8 yes, and no abstentions or no's.
Now, can I make the motion for the Manhattan Bridge?
Yes?
I'll move that we have them study taking one lane of the Manhattan Bridge to be a bike lane.
On traffic, vehicle
And
lane.
Sid, on a
Traffic lane,
permanent
yeah.
basis or as a summer street or as a coronavirus mitigation tactic? Is there a
I
qualification to
would
that?
think as a permanent basis, you only have 2 lanes coming in from Manhattan to Brooklyn. You have 5 lanes going from Brooklyn to Manhattan. They could take 1 lane.
Is there a second?
It's Brian Howell seconds.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Caroline, can we amend it to say at least 1 lane so that there's room for more than that?
Sure.
Thank you.
I accept it as a friendly amendment.
All right, John, can you do the roll again?
Juliet,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Abstain.
I vote yes. John Do?
Yes, yes, yes.
Doreen's not here. Brian?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Motion.
Patrick?
Did you say Patrick?
Yes.
Okay, yes, or I. I thought it was I.
Aye, either way. Carolyn?
Yes.
That's 701.
Thank you, John. Okay, thank you, Paul. Thank you, everybody else. Okay,
Thanks, Paul.
we're gonna, and thank you, Emily. Thank you for staying.
Well, Emily should stay for the next one too. For the,
We're gonna talk about Adams Street crossing, but the other DOT bike people, if anybody else is on still, you don't have to stay. Thank you. Approval of the minutes. I think this is the one where we don't vote on it, but if there are any comments, you just tell us if there are comments. Okay. If there are any, please let the district office know. For the chairperson's report, let's talk about the Adams Street crossing. The presentation that was emailed yesterday to you guys and previously is, John, did you want to speak to that, or is the president of Concord Village here?
the president of Concord Village is here. I just want to make a very quick comment, then Barry Newmark will, I think, wants to speak. But I like, it's been our proposal, this board, this committee and the board's proposal to have a mid-block crossing. But the surprising part of the proposal that we didn't know anything about until it went to the PDC just before we got it, just after we got it, is it's hardly a mid-block. It is close to, depending on what the block is, it's almost at the end of the block. And my fear is where it's placed, both in relationship to Concord Village and in relationship to the Brooklyn-bound traffic, is that it is so close to the end of the downward curve that that light will be ineffective in stopping the Brooklyn-bound traffic and will create a risk of anybody crossing. That's my initial comment, but I think we should open Barry Newmark, who's the president of the Concord Village Co-op board, because he's already solicited the views of the board, which speaks for the entirety of Concord Village.
Thank you,
Your mic's
John.
open. Barry, your mic's open.
Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for taking the time to have me respond to this. And Emily, thank you for staying so that you can hear this before you see it in writing. I'm speaking on behalf of Concord Village, which is a 1,023-unit cooperative housing complex situated on Adams, Tillery, and J Streets in downtown Brooklyn, home to more than 2,000 residents. We are deeply disappointed and concerned that DOT, in concert with the NYPD-CT, has been working on and developed a plan entitled the Adams Street Improvement Proposal without ever reaching out to Concord Village to discuss the reasons for such a plan and the details included therein. We have attended, we're attending the meeting tonight to voice some of our concerns. These include, again, a lack of outreach to Concord Village regarding this plan, No explanation about how such a plan will improve security measures currently in place. Apparently no effort to try other means, such as better and more signage, directing people to the walkway entrance on Adams and Tillery Streets. Potential loss of some parking spots on Adams Street, adding to the 30 to 40 spots we already lost as part of the Brooklyn Bridge Walkway project. Potential negative impact on the entrance exit driveway into Concord Village, situated just south of 175 Adams Street. The buildup of traffic heading north onto the Brooklyn Bridge and south exiting the bridge. This buildup will increase the levels of noise and air pollution Concord Village already experiences. Related to the buildup of traffic along Adams Street, additional traffic will undoubtedly pile up along Tillery and J Streets and likely on the Brooklyn Bridge as well. Non-residents of Concord Village may enter a private property after crossing Adams Street in an effort to walk from Adams Street to J Street instead of using Tillery or Sand Streets. I would include bicyclists as well, driving through our private property. We request a meeting with DOT and NYPD-CT to discuss all of the above in order to arrive at a mutually agreeable plan that addresses all parties' concerns as much as possible. I want to thank you again, Chairperson, for allowing me to raise our serious and heartfelt concerns regarding the whole process and regarding not even receiving a plan were it not for John know about it. I have a fellow chairperson with us, Peter Liuzzo. I'm not sure if he wants to add anything or not. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Newmark. Peter, do you want to add anything? He's muted. Could you unmute Peter? Maybe you can unmute yourself. Okay.
Can you hear me? Hi. Thank you for giving me a minute to speak. I would reiterate everything that Barry said, and also I'd be very interested to understand whether all of the various potential conflicts with Concord Village have been considered in developing this plan, essentially implementing a crosswalk perpendicular to the front entrance of our building and our driveway, combined with traffic lights, seems to present a multitude of challenges and potential conflicts, and I'd like to understand if these were studied and how they were considered and resolved. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. So Emily, I do want to say thank you to DOT for addressing this concern that has been on our wish list for a very long time. So I imagine with coronavirus, it's difficult to do the community outreach that we would like DOT to do. But it is important to us that DOT does connect with the immediately affected neighborhood in the implementation of its improvements. So it would be great if you or somebody from DOT could reach out with Concord Village virtually.
I'd be happy to reach out with Concord Village. I do want you guys to understand that this is a police department project, which is now at DDC's capital program, and so they're the ones. Design is set and it's ready for implementation. We're going to PDC soon, and so with all that in mind, the PowerPoint I did send you, that I sent earlier to Rob, that he distributed to the community, is for informational purposes.
Barry and Peter, you may want to write a letter to PDC if PDC is the agency that's considering this right now.
Well, Emily, if you're saying for informational purposes, is that another way of saying it's a fait accompli and don't ask?
I'm not saying don't ask. Of course, this is your community and you're more than welcome to ask anything regarding it. But I do want to manage your expectations and let you know that the presentation that I sent to you was for informational purposes from DDC, PD, and DOT to the board.
My mouth is open in shock and awe that a process like this would take place, whether it's DOT or NYPD, without talking to more than 2,000 residents who will be immediately affected by such a project. And we will not stay silent with regard to such a abuse of taxpayer dollars.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing, and I think we'll have to follow up on this on a on whatever regulatory level we have available to us.
We appreciate that deeply, and thank you again, Chairperson, for your interest and your allowing us to raise our concerns. I won't talk anymore, I promise.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Newmark. Okay, thank you. Emily, I'm just gonna mention the open restaurant plan that DOT is moving forward with. Oh, yes, Caroline?
Brian, Caroline, and Sid had something to say.
Sorry. Okay, go ahead. Brian first.
I did not. I just forgot to take.
Okay.
Caroline?
Yeah, hand lowered.
Sid?
I just said that you better get the city councilman involved now. If this is a PD project, it's going to go forward unless someone gets to meet with them.
Yeah, that's good advice. Okay, I'm just gonna finish up in chair's report. I'm letting you know that for the DOT's open restaurant plan, they're allowing the use of sidewalks and parking spaces for outdoor dining without going through the cumbersome application and approval process that we're usually a part of. I personally support this for the restaurants in the community to be able to open up and for economic development. It does mean that people that restaurants will have outdoor dining without coming through our committee. So I just want to let people know about that.
I sent out a link to the district manager earlier today, so if you're more than welcome to share that information to the committee. It's public, and applications are open tomorrow.
Great, thank you. Are there any other questions for Emily before we let her go? Okay, Emily, thank you. We're going to move on to recent events and statement of district needs. You're welcome to stay, but it's already late. It's already 8 o'clock, so.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, bye.
Bye. So I wanted to open up the discussion before we get into the statement of district needs with just taking a moment to speak about the Black Lives Matter movement that has been happening as a matter of public safety, which is why it's relevant to this committee. I would like to open it up to my colleagues to be able to speak about recent events as well. And although this movement has been underway for several years, African Americans and mostly men, African American men, are still being disproportionately killed by police at the same rates as they were 5 years ago. And we keep hearing the same stories over and over again, the same sad stories. So there is a lot of attention on this right now. There's a lot of urgency in the air. There's the protests have resulted in very positive legislative progress. For example, the repeal of Section 50A at the state level that increases transparency with access to officer disciplinary records. So I think that we're all moving in the right direction. The protests are helping to generate that broader awareness, and I think we do need this cultural adjustment as a society to address some of that deep-rooted racism and inequality in our systems, in our society. So I wanted to open up this discussion before we delve into the particulars of the district needs of how many police officers we need on Myrtle Avenue at Flatbush Avenue. So I'd like to open it up first to my Vice Chair Cheryl, if she wanted to say anything with regard to this.
Yeah, hi. It's, it's everyone's right to protest for something that they feel passionate about. But what I'm concerned about is that let's remember to protest in a peaceful manner. And also, most importantly, in a safe manner. We must all wear the mask whenever we go out, and especially if you're on a protest march, wear your mask. I am concerned about the health part of this. Julia spoke about the other part. I'm talking about the health part of it. Mask is important. You all want to go out there and protest. Hey, I've been out there too, but you've got to wear your mask, and it's not easy to stay 6 feet apart when you're in a crowd. So protest and protest safely and peacefully. Thanks.
Thank you, Cheryl. John, did you want to share?
Well, it's 8:04. We had a whole agenda, Juliet. This meeting is characteristic of why we are where we are today with the Black Lives Movement. DOT made a presentation that covered the Farragut housing, and they did not consult with the folks of Farragut housing. That's just another example. I can go back to when I started at this community board and give you a multitude of examples up until last year of how we conduct business automatically not considering folks of color. I heard a lot of that tonight. We talked a lot about bikes. We talked a lot about bridges. We got to 8 o'clock and we decided to talk and give time to the Black Lives Matter movement. That in and of itself is an indication of why this country and this world is in the condition that it is. We really have to open our eyes and see the level of disrespect and disconcern that is given to the community as a whole, and the Black Lives Movement has only happened largely because we have video cameras and an opportunity to share. So folks are now able to see what has been going on forever. And we do this kinds of stuff, Juliet, automatically. I will tell you, when I first started on this community board, my first example at the land use committee meeting was my application, which wasn't taken up, followed by another lady. My application was approved automatically. That's what was announced at the meeting at the landmarks committee level. It was for canopies on Clinton Avenue, the blue canopies when you drive by. That's what got me to the community board. At my first meeting, land use committee, an elderly lady comes in. She sits down. She had gotten a violation on a house that she had just inherited from her sister. The committee browbeat her for why she did not know that she had something illegal on a house that she had just inherited from her dead sister. They just browbeat her. So I stayed. At the end of the meeting, I was told I had to leave so the committee could go into executive session. I called the board office. I said, what's going on here? I had to leave. What happened to my application? Oh, and by the way, this is what happened. I went to my first full board meeting and spoke out. This is over 20 some odd years ago. I've never told this story. Spoke out. At the end of the meeting, I got a visit from our council member asking me if I would join community board 2. I said to her, I will not be muzzled. I will absolutely not be muzzled. And she said to me, that's why I want you on community board 2. That person, who was my council member back then, later became the public advocate and then is now the Attorney General for New York State, Tish James. I've had these issues at the community board throughout, but we never talk about it. So now I am going to start talking about it in all of these forums. Juliet, I will not go into it now because it's after 8 o'clock, and we were only supposed to be on this call until 8 o'clock. But again, we took care of everything else, and then we got to the Black Lives Matter after 8 o'clock. That's how we actually automatically do these things.
Can I make a
And we don't
suggestion?
even think twice about it because it's so common. It is just common to treat this community like that. It's automatic.
Can I make
We
a
don't do it
suggestion
on
in
the
response to that, John?
Excuse me?
I had a suggestion in response to that, because I hear what you're saying. Can I do that? I don't want to interrupt you, but so here's my suggestion, that we have a meeting dedicated to policing issues, and it could be organized around a review of the data on community complaints against police officers. Apparently, that's all being released from by the city.
Nice. Patrick, thank you so much. I think that's a fine suggestion. It is only a very small part of what I am talking about. All of that feeds into a much larger picture that, frankly, we have not addressed at this community board. I have 20 years worth of experiences that I could share that this community board has not supported the African American community within its own boundaries. You have not heard me say that before, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. We tend to not want to discuss these things because they're difficult for folk to digest.
Well, I was just suggesting it as, because I agree, I understand. We always end up going into the board discussion at the end of the meeting and essentially give short shrift to pretty important issues, issues that are important to the community board members. But if we had a dedicated meeting, and then also working from facts like that, we could have, a pretty constructive, focused, and meaningful discussion, I think. And okay, I hear what you're saying. It's not everything, but one step at a time, right? Or it's at least addressing that one specific issue, which obviously is front and center right now.
John, I hear exactly what you're saying about this taking, this being at the end of the meeting. I understand that feels like it was short shrift. I did not intend it to feel that way. And I may have been too polite in allowing our presenters to go on and could have cut off particularly one of them a little bit earlier. But I also want to listen to the voices in the community. And the voices wanted to talk about it. We'll have to set up another meeting, like you're suggesting, to focus more on these issues and not be sidetracked with other issues. So,
well, and I certainly would appreciate that. I will caution everyone that I was removed as chair of the Transportation Committee for exactly that reason. I will discuss that at a later date. But the doors are open now, and as I said to Tish, I'm going to speak my mind. I have been biting my tongue for a long period of time at this community board. There are issues that will be brought to the table. You guarantee that.
Thank you, John. Would anybody else like to talk?
Would it? So I just want to put that on the table, the idea of the review of the local data. And I say that, by the way, with a belief that we're fortunate to have a pretty. I've had very good experiences myself. Of course, I'm not Black, but I've very, very good experiences with the NCOs and the 84th as a whole. So, but it would be, I think it would be timely.
Comments that you're not Black, so we're not interested in that, frankly.
John, I'm talking now.
I hear that all the time.
John, I'm talking now.
All the time.
Okay, John. All right. Anyway, that's my specific proposal to look at that data, local data.
Thank you, Patrick. Caroline?
Yeah, I agree with everything Mr. Dew said. I also think it's a good idea for us to have a meeting just about Black Lives Matter and what that means for protests in the transportation spaces in the area and what it can mean for defunding the police or encouraging the police not to be in certain aspects of our public safety in CB2 and New York City. I think that we need to find a way to make space for these conversations in all of our meetings, not just the one that we will set aside in the days to come. Because, like, as we heard 3 different times this evening, police cars are blocking safety for other people driving, and safety for pedestrians, and safety for people on bikes. And that's, you know, not the least of it at all. Like, that is the least of it. And so, yeah, I just want to throw my support in favor of discussing this more and being intentional about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. Brian, did you raise your hand?
Yeah, I wanted to echo everything that Caroline just said, and to speak in support of what John said. I personally spent a lot of the last 2 weeks watching, I guess 3 weeks, watching the events unfold in and around our district. I've been to several protests, but I want to call attention to the fact that a lot of the acts of police brutality that occurred at the start of the protests occurred in and around the district too. We had an assemblywoman and state senator pepper sprayed in our district for peacefully protesting. And I also agree to the need to have a discussion that centers around these topics, because, and I'm very much guilty of this myself, focusing the conversation on transportation, this is public safety. I don't know what conversation that we can have now. I'm not really sure what this time limit is, but there's a citywide conversation going on about the role of the police and the amount of money that goes to the police department, and we're about to talk about district needs, and it seems a very relevant time to be having this discussion.
Mm-hmm. Carol Ann, when do we have to give our comments on the statement of district needs?
Preferably by September, because it needs to be ready to go to city planning by late October. I think it's actually Halloween Day. So the board needs to be able to vote on it in October at the latest.
So this is our last committee meeting before the summer recess, when only the executive committee will be authorized to act on behalf of the board, right?
Yes.
So this is our time to give comments on the statement of district needs.
Yes.
I would like to be able to at least review the public safety components of that. If I could share my screen. Caroline, does anybody else have their hand raised?
No, not that we can see.
Okay. So I would like to get into that if we have some time left. Caroline, we're not going to be cut off on the Webex meeting?
We'll extend it.
I don't know what that means.
We'll extend the time.
Oh, extend it.
Keep talking. Keep talking.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but just because I think it's relevant to what we're about to do, is there any way for us to, if board member, committee members are amenable to doing this, meet again next month, have a public meeting where we can discuss these issues more fully?
I didn't hear what you said. Repeat it, Brian.
Since we must conduct our meetings in public, and given that, because of the pandemic, our meetings are taking place on the internet anyway, would it be possible, I don't know what permission we need or whether everyone's amenable to it. But if so, we'd be able to have a meeting in July where we can discuss these issues more fully.
I think we'd have to
I'm
take it
available.
to the chair to see what he thinks about that. Chair Singletary.
Agreed.
And potentially he may want to take it up in executive committee as opposed to in this committee.
Juliet?
Yes.
In all openness, at least one other committee that I'm aware of is going to ask that question if they can host a meeting during the summer. For the same reason to review the statement.
Okay. Well, it's a different reason. I mean, this statement I think is part of it. It's also to be able to engage with the discussion about the Black Lives Matter movement more broadly. So, I don't want to spend too much time on the statement of district needs, but I do want to briefly review it. And then I would ask if we are not able to have a meeting over the summer, then I would ask that board members send me comments by email and the district office comments to be consolidated. I would just like to share my screen if I'm able to do
Juliet?
that. Yes.
So one of the things that I've done in the past with the HES committee is that we created a Google Doc that allowed members to make inputs prior to the meeting. So at the meeting, some time is saved and people have thought about things that can now be discussed publicly.
Okay, so you're suggesting that we do it offline and we collect the comments and then we consolidate those and then try to have a forum to talk about it.
Yeah, because then it maintains the public aspect.
And that makes more sense. How do the committee members feel about that?
Fine with me.
Fine with me because it gives us a chance to read it and not have to react off the cuff without giving it some thought.
Okay, so Caroline, would you be able to set up that Google Doc?
Sure.
Juliet, and everyone, we have to have a meeting on the Black Lives Matter issue over the summer. Obviously we can't wait till September on that. So, I mean, maybe the board as a whole is going to do this. I don't know. I guess that might be Lenny's call, but.
Yeah,
but
it's going to be Lenny's call.
Okay, but obviously you can't wait till September to do that, to have that meeting. That would be not timely. And I would imagine that discussion might produce some important language for the district needs statements, among other outputs.
I would think so. And I don't have to be the only person giving Lenny a call. So whoever feels strongly that we should be having this meeting, please reach out to him as well. So I'm going to postpone then the discussion of the statement of district needs and follow the procedure that Caroline suggested. And I will stop sharing these and then go back to the screen. Okay, you can take my sharing off. There. Okay, so that concludes my chair's report. Is there any other business to come before this community board meeting? And in the community forum, are there any other community members that would like to say anything? Okay, then I think at 8:23, we're going to adjourn the meeting. I want to thank everybody for participating, and thank you for bringing up what could be. It's not easy to have this kind of conversation, but we need to have a conversation. So I want to thank everybody for being on the call, being respectful, and continuing to have the conversation. So I look forward to meeting with you guys again, hopefully in another month. So thank you very much.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Motion
Good
to
night.
adjourn.
Motion is
Second.
meeting adjourned.